Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're doing the third time that we've gotten together to have this nice chat with myself, Yong, Ralph, and Jake, who are all people who make videos about video games on the internet, to talk about how 2022 is going so far. A lot of news came out today, but I figured we would start off with Sifu, because I think that was the first big release, if I'm correct.
Oh, we're doing all the way back to Sifu.
Yeah, well, we were planning to do this in February, and then things kept happening.
That's right. We were going to do this in February. That got away from us.
I think Elden Ring came out and everybody's productivity just went, and it's a month
down the drain.
And
actually, Dying Light 2 was the kickoff of the big season.
Okay.
Yes, of that February month of craziness.
Let's start with that. Dying Light 2. How did everybody feel about it?
I actually haven't played Dying Light 2 yet, so this is one where I can't really chime in much.
Down. Okay.
Ralph?
I did play it. Mm-hmm. I finished it. I hadn't actually played the first one, so it was like an entirely new thing for me. Like I'd seen videos and I'd heard like a lot of positive buzz, whatever. I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. God, it feels like a million years ago now. Can I just say? I'm trying to remember back. Like, what did I think of it exactly?
Also, when you say I liked it, that's a 7.
No,
that sounds like a 7.
No, because I think at the beginning I was very much like, this fucking rules. I love this game. It's so good, man. This is the best thing ever. And then you kind of settle into a rhythm with it. And then unfortunately at that back end of the game, it really drops off super hard because it's very narrative. It's a very narrative-led experience. Mm-hmm. And at the front end, I was kind of like, all right, you're doing some setup here, you're building some characters, whatever. But even then, it wasn't fully gelling with me. But then by the end, it just goes batshit crazy. And I mean,
the narrative gets bad?
Yes,
I think that's what a lot of reviews said, because I didn't finish it.
Yeah, like really just the way it sort of wraps up its key plot lines, the way you finally meet these characters that you've been seeking this entire game, and the way it handles that, it's just kind of like, what? That's it? And then the final villain and the sort of final boss encounter and just the abruptness of it all, but also how weirdly sort of convoluted it is. The sort of twists don't come naturally. I just was very much like, oh, that's a real bummer, you know? But having said that, like the gameplay journey throughout it, I thought was really awesome. And I was super impressed by, like, they have, because there's really 2 areas to the map. There's like a low rise setting, which is kind of like old, I don't know how to describe it, but just like imagine buildings 3 or 4 stories tall. Mm-hmm. And then in the second half of the game, you get to the city and it's skyscrapers and you get this like glider thing. And it's just fucking awesome. Like the parkour throughout the entire game is good, and it only gets better and better and better. And then when you get to that city, you're like, holy shit, this is incredible. Like, how are they doing this? You know? It does. But then, as I said, once you hit that point, everything starts to drop off. The sort of increase in that sort of the gameplay experience sort of hits a plateau, and narratively, it's very, very rough.
How long actually was it?
I actually can't even remember exactly now, but I'm going to say it's around about 30-ish hours, 30 to 40 hours.
Okay.
I think 30 to, in fact, I think closer to 40. I can't exactly remember. But it is in that ballpark.
Yeah, it wasn't 500.
Yeah. It was not. And I actually can't see how it could be 500 either. That's the other thing. I do remember thinking that as I was playing it. I'm like, I can see how you maybe get 200 hours of this, maybe, but 500 hours, unless there's some kind of metric or some collectibles or something.
That's
that
what
I
was
just
thinking.
Don't even
every
know
collectible,
exists.
maybe, or unlock everything on the map.
But even then, I was thinking even that wouldn't take 500 hours. But so it didn't make sense to me. I do remember as well, like Cyberpunk said something like that back in the day as well. In their like pre-hype period, they were like, "Oh, the game is like 500 hours long." We're like, "What?" And then that turned out to be.
Because they ended up. Yes. I know they ended up saying it's not as long as The Witcher 3, and people were upset about that.
No, but there's like one
playtester
who like he tweeted out, "There's like, oh, just wrapping up a hard mode play test of." You know, Cyberpunk, and I don't know. I don't remember the exact number of hours, but it was an obscene number of hours. And we're like, what? This game's going to be that big? And then it turned out to be not quite that much. So the game length discussion is a bit weird. But yeah, overall, like I definitely enjoyed Dying Light. I think it's good open world fodder. It can be played co-op, which I didn't play. I think I would have enjoyed it even more had I done that. And
I heard it's quite buggy. That's why I didn't
yes, that's another thing. I mean, overall the game was fairly buggy, I think. But yeah, that's that was my take on Dying Light.
It's definitely one of the ones where I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And then like after everything else came out, I was like, what? What game was that? I think
so you played it as well, Jake?
Yeah, it lost me in the end a little bit, but I really, really liked how it paced out all the abilities and the parkour stuff and the skill tree. I think some of the stuff actually clicked in a little bit too late, like the decisions that you make, where the decisions shape the world, like that whole thing that they hyped up.
Yes.
Once it does actually kick in, it's cool. Say it again.
Did that pay off?
Pay off? I'd say 50-50. A lot of the narrative stuff, no. Gameplay possibilities, yeah. Just the options of having cool ways to get around, having new tricks to kind of like cut zombies off at the pass. In terms of deciding between the factions, there's like the brutalist faction that'll set up the evil traps, or the parkour friends that'll just set up cool bridges and jump ropes for you.
Yeah, I did the parkour ones the whole way through because that's just like how I preferred to play, but those choices were not the choices that I felt like they kept talking about. Like that, sure, the world visibly changed, but it was so clear to me, even if I was talking to the Peacekeepers or Rebel, I don't remember what the factions are actually called, I didn't care about either of them story-wise. I was always just going to go for the parkour. Like, I wasn't making the decisions based on the people I just met. I was like, give me the climby stuff.
It also felt like they kept trying to play with like, they can both be bad. But like, I clearly saw like the parkour fun people building a little civilization in a church being the good people.
Yeah.
And then like the war criminal people being the war criminal
and the
people.
cops being ACAP. Like, you can't... yeah.
Moral ambiguity.
Not quite.
It was forced, and it didn't really like every decision. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I never really felt too much impact or too much of a junction point. Granted, I've only played through it once, but I only felt like there were like strong junctions, like little bits here and there.
I had some choices that I found difficult, but I don't know what the outcomes were because I didn't finish it. And I think when I started playing it, I knew I wasn't going to finish it. I was like, okay, yeah, this is cool, and I'm having a fun time, but I'm not going to sink 40 hours into this.
I will say, I do think your decisions matter as you go through, because they can cause some branching paths in terms of like missions you might do or approaches you might take during missions. But I think in the ending, definitely does not have much of an impact. Like in fact, in the last mission, and I guess I can't spoil too much, but let's just say in the last mission, you have to make this really important decision. Like, and it feels so pivotal and it's built up, it's huge, right? And then the game ends, and in the like the post-ending credits thing, like it actually basically says to you the exact opposite thing that you wanted to happen happened. It would kind of just reverse your decision for you. Swear to God. Like, and as I said, I won't spoil it for you. But I was just kind of like, well, why did you make me go through that whole decision, that really tough decision, if on the next screen you were going to say, actually,
lol, psych.
that other thing
lol,
happened.
JK.
You know, it was exactly that, you know? So that part was a bit of a bummer. So
yeah, and I think that's like a complicated thing to get right, is like often endings are the same. Obviously, Mass Effect 3. And sometimes it's the journey that's rewarding, but it never feels satisfying to players if you don't have control over the ending. Like, that's got to be a tough thing to try to figure out. And I remember one of my only criticisms of it when I started playing it was that I felt like some of the skills that I wanted from the start were locked off. Things that I felt should have been in any like free running game, that I was like, why can't I climb up a wall properly yet type stuff, that I was like, I just wish some of those skills were in there a little bit earlier. But neither of you sound too negative about that. So maybe it like you end up getting XP faster than I expected or something.
I think I did just because I was stuck in the world for so long. Like, I actually didn't realize how much time I spent the first time you're in the first area, just because I was running around exploring and doing whatever, which I think is a sign of good gameplay exploration. Even though it was simple, like that stuff I'm going to remember the most about the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with regards to its open world formula, it put a lot of effort. Like, it was the map marker driven thing, but it really did put a lot of effort into making those individual activities quite diverse. And I would say as well, like, yeah, I mean, I was just consistently surprised or engaged by that day-night cycle, which is so meaningful, because the game in one moment is just like a chill game and you're running along the rooftops, and then night falls and it's an entirely different decision-making framework that you begin to adopt. Do I go down onto the ground and try and scavenge for supplies? And what if a chase breaks out and whatever? That part of it was amazing. I really loved that. I don't think any game has handled a day-night cycle as well as this game does.
Super exciting. I also love, like you touched on it earlier, the world design, like the fact that there is the streets where the zombies are, and then everything vertical of that like has like a different. It's like two open worlds in one open world in a bunch of ways, and I think that's
exactly
really
right.
Yeah, they did a lot of stuff I really liked. So that was first, then Sifu.
Sifu.
I loved it. I loved it so much that at some point I looked, because I got through the whole game without age 20, whole game. And I realized that in order to do that, I put 20 hours just into the first 2 levels, which are only 5 minutes long. But I was like, I was just exploring everything. I was like, maybe if I go for the longer parts and get the upgrades and then do this, like I was just like so into it, and then slowed down a little bit when I got to the museum because I found that boss fight so difficult at the time.
Yeah.
But I absolutely adored it. It wasn't what I expected. It was so much more of a puzzle than just a beat 'em up. Like every room came about, well, I know that weapon is over here, so that's where I'm going to go first. And I know this person gets this and this happens here. Like much more about like a Hitman style than I expected. And I absolutely loved it. What did you guys think?
I didn't get a review copy for Sifu, and then I got a review copy for Elden Ring just as it launched. So I actually didn't get a chance to play, but I did watch a friend play it. And it seems like it's right up my alley, because I love those kinds of combat-based games where like pairing is really emphasized, and like timing and learning enemies' maneuvers and like being able to react to them and all that. And it seems like it's just a focused, condensed, like concentrated version of that just in the game. And the fact that it encourages basically repetition and learning through repetitions, like I don't want to like compare it to a Souls game per se, but it's almost like fighting a Souls boss, and you kind of go through that process. It's like for
you
some
have to
people
learn the bosses real well.
Yeah. For some people, it might be super frustrating, but for me, like I love that process of adapting and learning. So it seems right up my alley, and the combat system seems really cool. The animations look incredible.
It's also really stylish, really good music.
Very stylish looking, and yeah, music, visuals, everything. And I love some of the mods people came up for it, like the Neo and the John Wick ones.
I haven't seen any mods.
Oh,
what?
Man.
I've started touching grass more often, and that means I miss a lot of internet stuff.
Oh my god!
Yeah, there's a mod.
Neo mod.
No,
Jesus.
There's a mod that turns the main character into Neo, and then a bunch of Agent Smiths basically.
Damn, that's good.
Like the reloaded fight.
Amazing.
I may have
it's
seen somebody
amazing.
mention that actually. That's dope.
Yeah. But in terms of how it feels to play, you guys will have to.
Yes, Jake, did you play it?
It's sick. It's dope. It's tight. It's awesome. I really like how, like, I like. I don't want to say muscle memory games, but I want to say like responsive games where like hit like that, like Tony Hawk for me, like instinctively, like a jump triangle grind, like is just like so ingrained after playing it for so long. I found that with Sifu, really like every single hit, every block, every parry was like really like, it sounds corny, but like connected to me, like it was very visceral. And it's just like by the end of the game, when you're fighting the low level enemies, you feel like a god. Like you feel like you can actually do that in real life. And I think that just combined with the artsiness of it, where it is all like really stylized, but it's also really all celebratory. Like it's hyped about cinematography. It's hyped about highlighting all of these like kind of or referencing scenes from movies, famous fight scenes from classic kung fu movies, weapon types, enemy types. Like it all just like, it felt like it was like just so down to be there. And it really clicked with me because it really felt like, I'm like, this is perfect for slow clap. Cause I really liked Absolver. Absolver had a lot more depth in a lot of ways, but something about it was just slightly off, where this is just a kick-ass, like linear, straightforward video game experience. And for me, it was like totally perfect.
It almost has this like, it almost seems to encourage like a speedrunner mentality of
it absolutely does.
So good at this that you can just freaking, every single timing of like when enemies are coming, and exactly kind of,
it turns you insane.
Where every button feels like
while.
deliberate. It's not, you can't mash your way through. It's like every button, exactly what you're doing in the moment. and I love games like that.
I liked it for sure. I think I said in my review, I'm like, I usually have more affection for these games when they're in my rearview mirror, because I think the frustration of it when you're going through it, you're just like, fuck, man, this is so annoying. Like, come on now. And I'm the same as you. Like, level 2, such a bitch. Holy shit.
It's a
like,
gauntlet.
God, that was a tough level.
I didn't find it frustrating, and I think it's maybe only because it was so easy to just restart the level. So like as soon as I died, I was like, restart, let's go.
I think that's true, actually, except for level 2, which I think is actually level 1's the same, but it's a lot easier, I think. But level 2 I found was a point of frustration for me, because that level is much longer. And if you want to do that perfectly, then yeah, it's a longer mission to do it. Plus, one of my other frustrations with it was just I found it quite a difficult game to pass visually, like the telegraphs of enemies, in particular, the ones that look like Avatar, right? With the red pants and not wearing a shirt or whatever. The ones I'm talking about.
The kickboxer type guys?
Yeah.
The kickboxer type ones, right? They have some bullshit that they can bust out that doesn't always feel
It was
consistent.
the big guys that got me. The big guys.
Oh, the big fat dudes. How impossible was it to fucking dodge their grab thing? Like, that is what I'm talking about, where there were just like little moments like that where I didn't feel as though it was fully, completely, 100% as tight as it should have been. And that caused me that frustration that I didn't love.
I would only disagree with that because I learned. So like, I think there were probably moments initially where I was dog shit and I didn't know what was happening. But then because I did manage to beat the whole game without a single death, I did learn. It's just some of it took me a lot longer than other things.
That's what I mean. Yeah, like you eventually learn, and then you're sort of like, okay, when I'm facing one of those airbender dudes or whatever, this is how I have to play it, whatever. But that process was a little bit more frustrating than I would have liked. But overall, yeah, I really liked it more for its style and what it did visually and how it did it than for anything else, because that museum stage was incredible. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, beautiful.
Amazing. Just perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, what else do you want, man? Like, that's just, it's just
so good.
Incredible.
There's a hallway in the club, though, that like love a nice video game hallway. There's this one hallway that's like these neon lights that like light up and make a noise.
Oh, with the dual sense, it's so cool.
And the dual sense also like vibrates. I'm like, God, that's just the best video game hallway ever. That's the one Game of the Year award we don't have. It's best hallway, and it's seafood. It's so sick.
Is that old hallway action sequence as well, where the camera goes?
Yeah.
It
was very,
it
very
really
stylish.
does just make you like instinctively like wild. Like it feels like almost like the kind of like what Yang was saying before, where it's like, okay, do that. Okay, then I do that. Then I do that. It almost felt like the fight scene from the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes, but like sped up, where it's like, okay, do that. Okay, do that. Okay, do that. And then die and then do it 70 more times, especially in that club, because I think the club was kind of like how certain games like a Souls-like will give you a thing at the start to make you kind of overcome to learn the game.
The club is Margit.
The club is absolutely, especially because like at the end it throws Stick Lady at you, and then right after you beat Stick Lady, you think you're good. Then you have the two kickboxer guys. I found
Stick Lady harder than Sean. Like, I fucking hated Stick Lady.
Yes.
But there's one thing about the club in Sifu is there's this blonde chick when you first actually get into the club that everybody beats up first.
Yes, every time. I would always go straight for her. I was like, this isn't anything personal.
No,
it's just,
you just
this is the
happen to be
habit
there.
that I'm into. You were just in the wrong place, wrong time. I'm sorry.
Just get slapped about every single time. It's so funny. Yeah, I really liked it. It's definitely going to be like one of the Game of the Year contenders for me. The style really got me, but I also I'm not a person who really gets frustrated. So something like that I just could play through repeatedly and then, effectively become an expert at, I just found so rewarding, and it did come in a window of time right between other things were coming out. So I just like destroyed it, just playing it constantly.
Sure.
And really, really, really enjoyed it. After that,
Horizon?
Was it Horizon? Horizon was before Elden Ring?
It was like Sifu and Horizon came out very close.
It was Horizon.
Yeah, and I think Elden Ring codes went out before Horizon codes did. But
Did they?
Horizon, I think they
I
did.
remember
Maybe
reviewing Horizon before reviewing
No, it
Elden
was
Ring.
definitely, it was Horizon first, then Elden Ring. Yeah,
Some people got Elden Ring like 3 weeks early, though.
Oh, well, that would have been nice.
That would have been nice. God,
fantastic.
That was me, and it didn't
Shut
help
up, Jake.
at all. It didn't help at all.
So Horizon, I have not played a ton of it. but my first impressions were, my God, this is beautiful. Like, I was shocked by how beautiful it was.
The visual fidelity and art style of it is
incredible.
On a level. Yeah, it's on another level.
It's just a bummer for Gorilla that once again they came out against.
They keep getting overshadowed, and they don't deserve that because you can tell how much love and care they put into this. And beyond the fidelity, it's just like the animations are so good in this game. Facial wise, I mean, it all looked kind of plasticky in Zero Dawn. I remember it just all felt kind of mannequinish, but here it's like they all feel very human in the way, just little, like they motion capture a lot of stuff from what I understand, and it shows, and it just goes a long way in sort of the cinematic elements of the game. Like typically in a video game, when you have the back and forth, where you're talking to an NPC and choosing your dialogue options, it's very stilted. It's like cut here, cut back, and then the characters are very still and staring straight ahead and like not doing much. But here it's like the characters are like moving around. They have like ticks and gestures and unique behaviors that are part of what the actors perform. That's kind of all shown through the visuals, and it just makes the characters feel so much more alive, makes them look so much more natural. And
that's
just
incredible voice performances across the board.
Yeah, the performances are they nailed it. Minutia, like Aloy sweating when she's in the hotter regions versus or she'll be shivering when she's in the colder regions. Like so many minutiae that just sell you on the little things and the big things.
It's also the draw distance. Like I was just blown away by it graphically. Like it's just so beautiful. Like the swimming stuff I really liked as well. I thought that was so neat and like just so colorful.
Yeah,
it was.
So it's a massive achievement. Say again.
It's a good video game swimming. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive
we can't
achievement.
Take for granted.
Yeah, whenever any video game does anything underwater well, you're like, that's a good job, man. Well done. Like that is so rare. You can count on one hand.
All right.
You can count on one hand the number of games that have not fucked that up. You know what I mean?
It's true.
Or got that right.
I actually had a few issues with swimming. Like it wasn't like horrible, unwieldy, but there were a few moments where the swimming would just like I'd have to like go in this tunnel, like get stuck. And the camera would go crazy. Like there were a few buggy
I had those
moments, but nothing like game breaking or experience.
No Metal Gear Solid 2.
Oh,
nothing is.
Right.
Ralph, did you play the whole thing?
Yep.
Any more thoughts?
Absolutely loved it. I was so blown away. I mean, because I came to the first one late. I didn't play it at launch because it was the same thing. Came out and then I was like,
Breath of the Wild,
eh? Let's do that instead. And then I just never came back to it.
My plan is to go back to Forbidden West.
Right. Yeah. When you're done with Elden Ring, like 6 years later.
It's already been a month, dude.
So basically, then I played the PC version of Horizon. I'm like, holy shit, this is incredible. It was, I think, quite flawed in regard to sort of open world stuff and also like its crafting economy and all the looting bullshit and whatever else.
Probably especially if you played it late.
In what way? What do you mean?
Like it may have been dated versus other
open
world games that came out.
Yeah, true.
Because I think that formula or that genre does date really fast. Like I wish I could say Morrowind still holds up perfectly, but it doesn't.
It does. Don't you dare say otherwise. Anyway, so then obviously going into number 2, I was really kind of just expecting a prettier version of number 1, but I think in almost every single metric they took massive steps up, and I just was awestruck by the end of it. I'm like, it's such a great schlocky blockbuster kind of AAA game, and I liken it to something like Avatar, right? Where I know everyone loves to shit on Avatar. Okay, I get it, fair enough. We all make jokes about Avatar. That's a pretty damn impressive product. Like, think about it, man. Sit back and just like watch this film and be like, that's pretty damn cool, on multiple levels.
Avatar is good.
Yeah. I mean, like Avatar.
Not the take I was expecting this evening, but here we are.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, okay, like I totally get it's funny to make fun of Avatar. I make fun of Avatar, and there are like 4 more movies come out, so we are all obliged to make fun of Avatar. Okay, but the point is that like as a AAA spectacle, as a blockbuster spectacle, that is incredible on many levels, and I think this is the same sort of thing. I think its biggest accomplishment really only became evident when Elden Ring arrived, because I think it is a brilliant open world design, but it is in absolute stark contrast to everything Elden Ring was doing. And everyone's holding up Elden Ring as being like the perfect open world game. And it's kind of like, well, it's a really good one, I love it, of course. But at the same time, I think Horizon Forbidden West
If
shows
you put a
that-
screenshot of the two of them next to each other, one of them has just a lot more density than the other one. Just a lot more shit in it. Like, Horizon's just so full of stuff, and it's so technically... Again, I also love Elden Ring. I know we all want to talk about it. I'm trying to keep it to the end. We'll gush about it. But, like, Horizon's just, like, even the leaves. Like, there's just so much, and it runs so well.
Yes. My point, though, is more about just the design of that open world. And there is more than one way to design a good open world, you know, in terms of the kind of stuff that you have in it and how those things work, how you manage your map. And so, I think that it was interesting that Elden Ring came out so soon after that and provided that sort of contrast. Because I think that the success of Horizon Forbidden West, I don't think was diminished by Elden Ring. I actually think it was elevated by it, because I think it provided a contrast that really highlighted, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat, you know, and very few games have done that open world design thing better than Horizon Forbidden West have, in my view.
What specifics are you touching on? What specifically?
I just feel like I really didn't know what each map, like, obviously there's map markers there for sure, but when I get to them, I really have no idea what they're going to be. You know what I mean? Like, when it's like an exploration puzzle thing. Well, what is that exactly? Am I going underground? Is it a climbing puzzle focused thing? Am I trying to find a specific item, or am I speaking to a person? Like, it really does feel you're just pushing forward into these areas, and you're kind of discovering what you find when you get there, you know? So I really love that. But I also think as well, the dynamism of the combat just made it so good, because as you were moving through it, you were always going through these combat encounters. And I personally feel like, you know, obviously Elden Ring complicates this discussion, but before Elden Ring, I would have said that Horizon Forbidden West has the best combat of any open world video game I've played. The spectacle of facing off against those like robot dinosaurs and what you're capable of as a character. It looks like pre-scripted encounters sometimes. If you slow it down and watch it again, you're like, how is that? How did I do all that? Do you know what I mean? It's so beautifully framed, and the ferocity of your enemies and your own capabilities. I loved it so much. I never got tired of that either. So and then Elden Ring comes along, is like, hey, how about you? I don't know.
Not yet. We're not there
okay,
yet.
All right. We'll come back to that later.
Jake, did you play Horizon?
Yeah, I wasn't in love with the combat. It just kind of felt like the part of the game that I had to play, where I can't really explain why. Like SkillUp and his video, like he was so eloquent about why he thought combat was the best ever. I'm like, I don't know, it's too rolly, and I wish it was Monster Hunter. But I think it gets better as you go. You get more empowered, especially once you go. It's like the first one too. Once you head into a battle, at least knowing what you need to get out of it, that makes it more fulfilling. But it didn't jive with me enough. What kept me going was the look of the world, the exploration. I like the world that they built more here than in the original, just in terms of like towns, civilizations, hidden stuff, like all that hit with me so much more than any of the big city or hub areas or anything like that in the first one. It just felt a little bit more, I don't know, like they all just meshed better. All the cultures and all the NPCs and stuff, I thought just meshed better with the world. They didn't just feel like these like people just kind of standing there with giant headdresses. It all just felt a little bit more natural. And then when you tie that in with how everybody was amazing looking and everybody's engaging and interesting, it made me want to go explore more, just to like meet more people, as corny as that sounds. Because I feel like every person in the game that you meet, you see how they're modeled and how they're animated, and they're played by an incredible actor, and you're like, oh, this guy's cool. He's gonna be around for a while. Look how good the graphics are on his face.
Yeah,
and then he's
so
like,
true.
all right, have a nice day. I just opened the door, and you never see him again. And it's like, holy shit, this game is wild.
It is interesting to think about how different some of the open world NPCs are between these three games. If we go Dying Light 2, I feel like they tried to make them like really wacky and weird, and like they're very Fallout-y or Obsidian style to me. And then you go Elden Ring, and they're FromSoft NPCs, so everything is the maidens have found a site of grace, and it's all like just like
Turtle Pope rules.
Just hello.
Turtle Pope rules.
And then Horizon in the middle, I feel like they probably have the most realistic characters of that group. And it's three just such different styles of open world NPCs to come out in a really similar chunk of time. It's like, hey, maybe video games can be varied. Cool.
Yeah.
How cool
That's
was
the thing.
Katalo? Was he everyone else's boy? Anyone else? Katalo?
Yeah, big
What a
fan.
legend.
Oh.
Big
yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
It's just some, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I
Just
liked a
love
lot
that
of
guy
them.
so much.
The only thing that I don't love about Horizon, and I have this issue with a lot of games, something that Elden Ring very rarely does, thankfully, is I just don't love anything that's like gameplay cutscene. Little bit of walking cutscene. I have that
Yeah.
issue with Psychonauts 2, like really let that
Sure.
game down for me a bit. Like I still love both of those games, but I just something about that gameplay loop I just find really frustrating. Like if I had an opportunity
Same.
to still be engaging in gameplay when having these conversations, I would much prefer that than having the camera taken away or the control taken away from me so frequently. And Horizon does it enough that both those games did it enough that it bothered me.
Horizon also has a lot of these missions where it's like follow the purple trail. And like Ghost of Tsushima also had plenty of those. And like,
Sure.
I'm so sick and tired of that specific mission structure. And Horizon did it enough where I kind of got disengaged with a lot of quests because so much of it involved just like follow the thing and listen to Aloy talk
And
to
scan.
herself for like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Aloy talking
Aloy
to
talks
herself.
so much.
Man,
Like,
that
Women,
was bad.
right? You know?
She kept solving the puzzles.
I do not agree
through
with
the
that, Alanah,
dialogue.
just for the record. Okay? I do
Alana's
not
words,
agree with
not
that
mine.
statement.
Yeah, she kept solving the puzzles for me, and
Yeah.
I was almost like racing to solve it before she says anything. I was like, "Oh, I see the thing," and
You're
she'd be like, "Oh,
competing with her?
there's the thing. I should use my hook to like pull it." And I'm like, "Fuck!" Like I know I was gonna do it. Just like let me do it.
Maybe the game thought you were
Right.
too slow. They put them in because they were like, this dummy's not going to figure this out.
But it's not like it was
Audio
like
cue.
after a minute. It was literally 5 seconds after I came
Yes.
into
Yeah,
the room
she
where the
does.
puzzle's at. She'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's a thing that I need to do the thing with," and I'm like, "Well, there goes all my engagement with this section of now I'm just following instructions and
Yeah.
not like playing the game."
I can't even imagine how much dialogue they actually had to record. There is so much of it. And I
Oh,
think
there's a
Aloy is
lot.
so well fleshed out, like considering
Yeah.
some of the criticisms for how often she speaks. It's like, I just feel like she's like such a well-rounded and I really like her as a character that it's like, it's impressive that you managed to stay consistent, in my opinion, considering how long you spend with her.
Her performance by Ashley Birch, I
didn't
think,
finish
was
it.
really well done. But for me, actually, the character development of Aloy is one of the issues I had with the game, where she does eventually, like, the whole journey with her is like, I need to do this alone. And then by then she's like, oh, it's better with friends. Like, friendship is, magic or whatever.
Anime.
But all right. But it's just, I didn't feel like they focused enough on just that development of her going from, man, like
I know what you mean.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I
Yeah.
actually do.
Again,
I
didn't
actually,
finish
sorry, you want what?
Oh, I didn't finish it, so I don't have a whole look at what
Yeah,
happened.
I actually have similar thoughts on that. I really feel like her narrative arc in the first game was fantastic because you've got a situation where she's coming up, she's got something to prove, she's now she's got this burden, and she is the key
loses
to everything.
her
And, like,
most love. Yeah.
Yeah, like her journey reflected the game's journey, I think. And I think that's actually, it's a common trope across a lot of media. I think Sony games in particular really understand this, the way that a personal journey, an inner journey is mirrored in the outer journey. But I don't think that Horizon Forbidden West nailed that in quite the same way. I don't know
I
that
agree.
Aloy's journey
It's possible
was really
I got
as
tricked by how
clean.
good Ashley Birch is.
Yeah, no, she's
Sure.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's easy
Entirely
to be
possible.
tricked by that, obviously. I mean, I just played Tiny Tina and I'm like, how is this the same person? This
So
does
good.
not make sense. That is
So
impossible.
good.
But I'm with you on that, Yong. I do agree
Yeah.
with you that part was just a little bit, I think, significantly
Mhm.
weaker than the first game.
Yeah, and I feel like Aloy throughout this whole journey, she always felt like she was so annoyed for being surrounded by people.
Yes, she
She just
Can't
always like,
relate.
she's always like silent, like and it makes it feel like the companionship is more of an obligation than her actually like developing to like learn to be like, you know what, this is actually better and I need to learn to trust people. And like there aren't critical moments where she goes, okay, like if I would have done this alone, I would have failed and there would have been consequences, and like moments that really reinforce to her that there's nothing wrong with asking for help. It just felt like it kind of happened as people kept like annoying Aloy and be like, look, I'm gonna join you. I don't care if you want me to join you or not. I'm gonna go along. She's like, fine, all right, come along.
I did love how they did the
That's-
tutorial, though. The tutorialization was Aloy teaching somebody else. I was like,
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah. The whole
'Cause
sequence.
She should know everything
Yeah,
already,
that's
obviously.
And
That
then
was
with the
great,
giant, boss battle there at the end with the big snake. And yeah, the mech design, I love mechs. I mean, I got this guy right here, Metal Gear Rex. But yeah, in terms of combat, I agree that when you look at it, it looks spectacular. It looks like a pre-made cutscene or something sometimes, with how just spectacular you can make combat look.
If you're good at
the feel of combat is where I had an issue, and that's where I agree more with Jake. Something about the way it feels, the fact that it can only dodge and there was no blocking mechanics or anything. Just I really wanted to block sometimes.
Sure.
And then combined with the management of the weapon wheel and the so many ammo types, and not being able to really use all the tools that you have because the weapon wheel is so limited, meant that I felt like I was not ever fully utilizing my creative drive in combat. It felt like I had to just limit myself to, oh, well, that thing's, weak to these elements and only have these specific weapons that have these elements. I want to use the traps, but it's like these traps just don't happen to work with this particular encounter. So I'll just shoot it to death because that's just the best route with the combat capabilities I have right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I wish there was a way to just have all my tools available and then change the ammo stuff on the fly so that I could just focus on like the creativity of combat instead of the managing of combat.
I do agree with that in part. I think that one of the criticisms I would have of the combat in this game versus the last is they've added some stuff that just seemed like needless complexity. They do have some more weapon types, and there are more ammo types and more systems and all this sort of stuff. It's like, well, it's a lot of weapons and a lot of different things that you're like, well, did you really need 5 or 6 different types of ammo or dealing damage when they all ultimately do the same thing?
Exactly.
And it's kind of like if you stripped out a lot of that complexity and just focused on, like for example, Monster Hunter does that really well. It's incredibly deep, but it's not, I wouldn't say its core combat is overly convoluted. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It is about your core combos, and it's about the movement of the enemy and yourself and your locomotion and the sheath and unsheath.
Yes.
I think if it focused more on that rather than, hey, you can now deal damage over time through a pink damage type as opposed to a red one. It's like, oh, cool, thanks.
What
I think that would have been
stops it from
better.
being like a satisfying choice then? So like if the idea is there are too many, where is the line between satisfying amount of variety and customization for you as a player versus this feels too complex? Like, where is that line?
I mean, for me personally, I think I've seen it in other games where it's kind of that, like, it's the M&M, it's the equivalent of like choosing different colored M&Ms, right? Yeah. When I'm dealing damage over time with, not at all. Like, I mean, dealing damage over time with fire versus dealing damage over time with
acid.
It's not damage over time, but there's like this pink element thing in Horizon that kind of deals explosive damage or whatever. Does it feel fundamentally different? Not really. So now I'm just going through this extra clutter without really expanding the moment to moment gameplay. So that's where I sort of draw the line when it comes to that. Unless the customization is changing the way I actually play, then I'm not a huge fan of it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I felt like, oftentimes enemies have these like little barrels sticking out, and they're different colors based on the element you should strike them with, so they blow up and cause a chain reaction. And it just felt like, oh, I need to find the right color for the right canister, instead of like, ooh, this thing has this effect and this has this other effect. How do I use these very different effects creatively and like style on these enemies? It didn't feel quite that. It just felt like I was managing colors and ammos based on the colors. I agree that the effects weren't stark enough in contrast for me to feel like I could employ them creatively. It just felt like I was kind of doing what the game was telling me to do, which is like, okay, use this color for that color and use this color for that color.
So I mean, I ended up just kind of limiting myself to a few options.
That's what I think I usually do too.
Yeah,
like I just don't use
your tripcaster and your bow and some explosive, the firebomb, whatever. Yeah. I think when you start to narrow in on that stuff, that was when I was just like, this is so good. Because again, that enemy design, just the variety of it, the way they behave, I just couldn't get enough of it. I never mounted up when I played that game. Like I just didn't mount.
Me too.
Because I was like, I'm always just going to walk wherever I go because I'm going to find something interesting to do and I'm going to find something cool to fight. And that was always it. And I think that was just the secret to its formula, find interesting stuff or kill interesting stuff all the way through,
Yeah, the
so I
stuff
love
there's to
those.
kill, like the animations of the mechs themselves, like
Yeah.
it's ridiculous how
Yeah,
much
yeah.
detail
And the
there is.
unpredictability of them.
The
Yes.
unpredictability, the
Yep.
attacks, their move sets. It all feels like big ass like Monster Hunter or Dark Souls boss sequences. And these
Dino
are like some of them are
Riders.
just normal combat sequences out and about in the open world,
Yeah.
and they can feel so epic. So that's awesome.
Well, I think next is Elden Ring.
Oh my god.
Am I right?
And
Yeah.
how long do we have? Yeah.
I held it off for as long as I could. So then Elden Ring came out, and this is like the longest I think I've ever seen video game discourse stay on one game. Like it's been over a
Yeah.
month. I don't even feel like Breath of the Wild was this long.
No.
If everybody's
Long,
still
yeah.
just talking about it.
Yeah.
So Young, do you want to go first? How'd you feel
I
about
think
Elden
that's-
Ring?
Yeah, that what Breath of the Wild was like the pinnacle of open world design for me back then.
Me too.
Then Elden Ring came along. And what Elden Ring does is when I discover something, I don't find a Korok seed. I don't know what I'll find. I don't know what, like the catacombs, that's, I'd say the most formulaic thing there is in the game where like, yeah, these
Very
are
Dark Souls-y.
repeating elements. Yeah. But even then, like the boss at the end, you don't know what you'll really find. What rewards will you find? What talisman will suddenly change up your entire conception of your character build? What freaking, like when I found that freaking elevator that led me like a million feet underground and then this whole other, my God, like and then I check my map and turns out I can find map fragments for this underground. Like I that's when I began to realize I don't have enough time to finish this game. A week? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think a lot of reviewers didn't finish it because it's just so big.
I think I don't know who else. I know IGN's reviewer did, Mitch Saltzman, but I don't know any others that finished it on the embargo. I could be wrong about that. I'm sure there were, in fact.
I also
but I only know of Mitch that did
feel
it.
like you need to for Elden Ring.
No.
Which is not something I would often say. I never reviewed a game without finishing it, but in this case, it's like you do know what it is. 50 hours in, you do know what it is. It's not like you need to finish the story and find out what the fuck the Elden Ring is. Like you're okay, I think.
It's the friends we made along the way.
Well, it's also that you can like make your review worse by trying to crunch too hard, and then you have a negative impression.
Absolutely.
And it's like this whole thing to balance. But
yeah.
I mean, I think FromSoft has always been really good at that. Like, you turn around a corner and you don't know what's going to be there. And I've always felt like that's one of the things they're best at. And I was actually worried about Elden Ring. I was like, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull off that surprise, which is, again, one of my favorite things about their games, of like me walking in a corridor and this plan sequence and there's a giant snake. And I'm like, oh, but they nailed it. Like the fact that they did manage to do it in an open world is like, I don't even know how. I don't know how they did it.
You're never taken out of gameplay. It all happens organically as you're walking around. Crazy shit will happen around you. Crazy creatures will show up. And this is
no loading screens.
No loading screens. Performance issues aside.
I had really, really bad performance issues.
Like, you did? Okay, right.
Really, really bad. Like, I just bought it on console because I'm still having such bad frame rate drops on PC that, like, after 40 plus hours, I got sick of it. So I'm on console now, which is a huge bummer. Also, I think the network issues suck. And I still think the UI is not great, and we just give them such a pass for it. But incredible video game.
It's I want to say top 3 favorite games of all time. I haven't felt about a video game like this since like Ocarina of Time, when that first time you realize, oh, video games can do this. And they can bring me these kinds of emotions. Like
the thing that's nuts about that is the amount of people who feel that way. It's like it feels like it was personally tailored for you to have this incredible experience. Again, I felt this way about Breath of the Wild as well. And then you play this and you feel that way, where you just constantly are in this feeling of awe. But then so does everyone else you know. Like the fact that it's that formula is so applicable to so many people is just nuts.
Yeah, I tend to get tired of a game after the 100-hour mark. With Breath of the Wild, I got to like 130 and then I was done. Persona 5, I got to like 120 hours ish. Elden Ring, I've played now for close to 200 hours. I still haven't started New Game Plus because I'm still finding shit. I'm like, I rolled credits and then I explored the open world. Turned out there were entire major bosses that I missed an entire underground section that I just didn't know how to get to before, and that I suddenly stumbled upon. I started like sifting through the map now that I'm like, all right, I'm probably not going to find anything else by myself. Let's see what else is out there based on the wiki guide. And there's still some shit that I'm like, I can't believe there's still more to offer. And
It's
that
such a big game.
It's huge. It feels like 6 years were used incredibly well in this game's development. And I don't know. To me, this isn't the only way to make an open world, but I was getting really just tired. I think maybe that partially contributed to my not being like blown away by Horizon Forbidden West. It still felt somewhat formulaic, the best version of that formulaic kind of open world style, but Elden Ring was such a breath of fresh air. Maybe that's partly why so many people are drawn to it. And it's not like the only way to do open world design, but
I'm a very big fan of not cluttering my mini map. And everybody seems to feel that way. It's so odd that it's so consistent. I think it's like maybe it does well in playtesting. Probably for a lot of people need a lot of direction and it's more helpful for more people. But I love the map markers. I thought that was a really good thing in the patches. Giving me more map markers is really helpful.
Yes.
I use them all the time. I saw some tweets saying have a notebook. I didn't do that, but I don't fundamentally I disagree with that. I feel like that's not a bad idea. Just never need a mini map marker set of checklists ever again in my life. Assassin's Creed just burned me out on that too badly.
It felt like it actually, we talk so much about organic exploration and exploration happening organically, but this is the first one where it felt like it really did, because Ubisoft games have tried to kind of tweak that formula. I remember Far Cry 5 was big because they did do stuff where it was like you could just find an NPC and he'd be like, there's a tower over there, I heard, and then all of a sudden then it would be on your map, and then you go, okay, maybe that's a tower over there. So they tried, but it never actually still felt organic because it still felt like you were just populating your map. Yeah. Where Elden Ring, I think, is kind of like the antithesis of just stumbling upon things. And I tried to we were talking about how massive it is. I tried to make sure I was okay, but if I distill it down to not a million hours and not having so much content to always stumble upon, is it still good? Because not every development studio is going to be able to make a massive world packed with that many things. So I'm is it still good in its raw form? And yeah, essentially it is, because it has the Souls formula, and it's a very good one, and the jump button is very good. And
every 15 minute, you could give somebody that game anywhere, 15-minute chunk, have at it. They're all going to have a very exciting, unique experience, no matter where you put them on the map. As long as you haven't killed everything, you'd be just try it out, see what happens. And I feel like everyone is going to be whoa, what? Because there's no lull. I feel like the open world isn't as populated or again as dense as Horizon. It probably is more similar to Breath of the Wild, which wasn't super populated.
No.
Yeah. But there's just so much creativity in the different stuff that you find.
Yeah. I think it's the imagination. I think is something. I don't know that we talk about imagination a lot, but I mean, obviously, any video game is the result of imagination. But this one just feels like it just I don't know. It feels like a fever dream almost.
Otherworldly,
It just seems to sort of flow out as though you've just I don't know, man. You've passed out somewhere after smoking too much something, and then this is what happened, and you. For real though, and I just think the fact that we're able to capture that is so rare and so special. That is what I take away from it more than anything else. Because I do think that this, a lot of what's done has been done before. You know what I mean? I don't think Breath of the Wild is that dissimilar in terms of most of its core design, and certainly stuff like Outer Wilds, which I won't shut up about. But same thing when it comes to discovery and exploration. But I just think the way that you're able to apply that philosophy, combine it with the FromSoft RPG and combat model, which has really been developed over the better part of 2 decades, and then blow it up over a 6-year development cycle with hundreds of developers and this massive budget, able to create that amount of square mileage, and then pack all of that square mileage with this imagination, that is just an incredible combination of stuff. And I think, I'm sure people are wondering, well, what can developers take from this? And I don't know, man. what can they take from it? Like, you're going to tell me some other studio is going to try and make something like this? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about that.
I would say like the map is a thing that I would want like all games to have almost. Like again,
not a handholdy map.
The lack of markers I feel like is so helpful. But you're right that like the imagination, the creativity is not something that can be easily replicated, in that it wouldn't even necessarily make sense elsewhere. It would just be jarring and weird. But again, I think they've always been good at that.
It's the difference between walking into a fort and seeing a guard, which is like every other game, and then in Elden Ring, you walk into a fort and you'll see this weird guy wearing like this helmet with like a plate on top of it, and then it starts fucking spitting fire everywhere, and you're just like, what is happening right now? Like
even the negative stuff that happens is like, the hugging thing.
Yeah.
Like even finding that out, or that the guy just before Godric who's stealing your souls. Like finding those things out. Sorry, runes. Like even the negative stuff, I'm like, bitch, what? How dare you? Like, like they even put negative effects on the player that is still very exciting to discover, which is like not a lot of games do that.
And the sheer number of options that this game gives you, while I wouldn't say this makes the game entirely accessible, it makes it far more accessible than previous Souls games, where you can almost like decide, I want to skip this boss. Come on, Chad Mimic, let's do this. And just like go in there and obliterate an enemy that by yourself would be much more difficult, or you can cast a, freaking Kamehameha and just melt an enemy in 2 seconds.
Yeah, co-op also obviously very helpful there.
Co-op, of course. Or if you're like a traditionalist, like I would pick and choose my battles. Some bosses would be like, oh, this is one of those that I'm like, I gotta like learn this boss and just fight him by myself, because that's what would be most satisfying to me. But if it's too difficult for some people, or they don't want to like spend that time, melt him away. Like there is skill and there's preparation. That's the sort of the two things you can do in Souls. You can break the game, and part of the fun of Elden Ring is like learning how to break it almost. And FromSoft, it almost feels like they encourage that with the sheer number of like spells combined with the talismans and the physics that you can drink and the different effects they have, and how you can combine all of these to almost like, it's almost like a Binding of Isaac when you got all these different upgrades and crazy shit can happen. It feels like that, where your builds can really break the game, and you can either do it, fairly or whatever, without cheating the game and yourself by just like learning the boss, or you can just like over prepare and just annihilate the boss. And
I think that discourse sucks. Play it however you want.
Yeah, play it however you want and
do
make
whatever
your
you
own fun.
want.
Yeah,
it's
that's what
you to be able to.
That's what I love about Elden Ring, is like there's so many options to make your own fun. I'm
planning to, now that I bought it on console, do a full magic run, because I had not touched it really at all. I just went strength and dex because I always do. So I am going full magic.
We'll
Magic's fun. But I was also like, basically this is technically the third time I've started the game. I was gonna look up walkthroughs this time, which is something that I've always recommended for people with FromSoft games.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
if you get frustrated, it can be bad enough sometimes that people just want to give up, depending on the kind of person you are. And I don't think there's any shame in having a walkthrough if you feel like it'll make you enjoy things. So what I'm going to do is just be like, best early magic armor, whatever, and then just go find it and then just figure it out from there. And I think that's fine. You're allowed. Play it however you want.
As the devs intended, or whatever. Like,
did you
so
fucking
funny
ask
to me.
Miyazaki?
When people criticize, like, whoa, you're summoning mimics for your boss battles. That's not how like, they added the mechanic for a reason, dude. Why are you upgrading your? Why are you attacking an enemy? You're not supposed to do that. That just makes the game easier.
Rolls only.
Right. Rolls only playthrough. That whole discourse is silly. I love the options that Elden Ring gives you.
Yes, I will say again, the only thing that I don't love where the options are concerned is the UI, where sometimes I'll pick something up and be like, where is that?
Yes.
And what does it do? Okay.
Turns out you can sort by the order in which the items were acquired.
Can
you? Learned that. Yeah, you can.
That's helpful.
That's super helpful. I only learned that.
Added.
But they never tell you that, so that's obviously an issue. That's definitely a UX issue.
Yeah,
there are things like that.
It's just a bit of a mess, and the fact that there's like inventory and equipment, I think the fact that I can't even remember the names of the individual menus, I feel like is also telling, considering the amount of hours I put in. Like, it's just a bit of a mess. And the repeatedly like Estus flasking when I'm trying to get on my mount. Sorry, tears. Like, that definitely is a thing, but I think this has been an interesting thing to watch game devs talk about on Twitter. Is people trying to figure out why the public is forgiving of a lot of the flaws is, I think, pretty obvious, which is when the positives you feel so positively about.
Yeah.
The flaws just like go down in importance so dramatically, so quickly that you're like, you can have a flawed video game. Nobody's asking for a perfect video game. It doesn't exist. The positives just have to be so positive that you're like, the UI kind of sucks. Whatever. It's fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The game's so good though.
I get that all the time in my comment section. Like, you said this about that game, but you didn't say it about this one. What a double standard. It's kind of like, well, no, that's not how this works. Like, you can hit certain thresholds for enjoyment. And when you pass those thresholds, then you forgive certain things. And similarly, when you fall below them, then those things become really top of mind because you're not thinking about how much fun you're having. You're thinking about how much fun you're not having and looking for stuff to blame. And so you find the fucking shit UI and you're like, Gearbox, when are you going to update this UI? It's been so many years. Come on now, you know?
Oh my God.
So, like it's just... Yeah, we all have different tolerance based on how much we fall in love with something.
Exactly. And, individual features don't exist in a vacuum. They exist in the context of the entire game.
Exactly.
Basically.
Correct.
I've also been digging it as like a cultural movement because just seeing everybody experience it, and a lot of people, it be their first Souls game or their first Souls game where they make substantial progress. Like all of that has just been really satisfying to see, especially because like I usually don't care about the discourse or anybody, but like we were talking about before, because it has been so large, it's like unavoidable, and it's all been pretty good. You've seen people help each other. The memes have been consistently good for what is it, a month now?
Yeah.
I still see shit from Elden, like I still see Elden Ring memes that make me laugh, and I think that's pretty funny, and it's a good, it's just a good whole gaming experience, especially just, I don't know, helping one another and learning the game.
Again,
and
I think
people
I've
sharing
always
build
loved
guides
about
with one another.
FromSoft is that, like, when I was playing through the first Dark Souls when it came out, I was on a Facebook group, and everyone, back when people used Facebook, and everyone was just figuring out things in real time. I had the same experience with Breath of the Wild, but I feel like with Elden Ring, it's just on such a large scale right now that it seems like it's everyone you know. And I'm already like, I don't want to use Twitter right now because everyone's talking about the fucking Oscars, which I don't care about.
Right.
I'm going to just stay off for 3 days.
Why? What happened?
Give me my Elden Ring back. Nothing. Elden Ring. Shut up. So it is really fun to experience something like this, like with the community for sure. And I'm so glad it's done so well. Like I didn't think people who don't like FromSoft games would like this game. And I still think that applies like to an extent. Like if you don't like the formula, you don't like the combat, you don't like the rolling, and you don't like the UI, I don't think this is the game that's going to change that. It does seem like people have been a little bit split on whether it's more, I don't want to say accessible because that's the wrong word, but easy to get into.
Yeah.
For some people, it definitely is, like, because you can leave and go grind somewhere else and then come back. But then I know some people, it kind of depends on the person, who haven't liked it as much because it feels directionless. Like they just don't feel like they have anywhere specifically to go. And that there's always variety in that. But it seems like by and large, people love it. And it's fun. It's nice when people like something, especially in video games.
Yeah,
it's even to the point where we're seeing people. So the fact that, like, what did it sell? Like over 12 million copies. Like it's unprecedented.
And
how many
wasn't,
people
like, Dark
are
Souls
playing this
lifetime
game?
13 million?
Yeah, like the
12
whole
million
trilogy.
2
The whole
weeks.
trilogy.
The whole trilogy was 13?
Oh, the whole
Yes.
trilogy. Yeah.
It
And
took
Elden
them-
Ring's 12?
Yeah, but no, I think it's something. It was, the figure was something like it took the entire Dark Souls trilogy X number of years to hit 12 million
I thought
sales,
it was just the
and
first
then
one.
and then Elden Ring hit 12 million units in its first week.
It's
So
wild.
like it's a totally different, and that part is utterly staggering to me. I never in a billion years would have guessed this. Like absolutely not. I really thought we were just in for Dark Souls 4 level of engagement.
Yeah, me
which
too.
was,
Dark
hey,
Souls-
FromSoft fans will love this and it will sell well. And hey, PC sales are higher this time around. What a surprise!
It's still
that
top of
kind
the
thing,
charts, I think.
It was.
Yeah.
I looked on Steam yesterday. It was the number 2 game being played on Steam at that moment when I was watching
What
it,
was on
right
top?
after CS:GO, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So I mean, that
Dark
itself,
Souls-
a single player FromSoft game, a super hardcore RPG being played like that, number 2 most played game on Steam.
Like
that
doing
is
Call of Duty numbers.
astounding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone in my chat just said the trilogy was 27 million, apparently.
Yeah,
And I never
yeah, but
tweeted
like
about
I was saying, it was like, as I said, Dark Souls has sold more, but the time at which it took to reach 12 million units or something was way longer than a week. You know what I mean?
I just did nothing but
I think
happy
it
for
sold
him.
10 million
Yes.
lifetime or something.
Damn.
So it in 2 weeks it surpassed it, and it'll probably
It'll keep going.
Like, you keep going. Yeah, I would be surprised if this game doesn't sell at least 20 million.
I wonder what the
don't know.
completion rate is right now. Like it can't
that's a
be
good
50%.
question.
Like it must be
No,
super
like
low.
4%. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's got to like in that.
Yeah,
that
I would think it
area.
is
I've been-
incredibly low.
There have been impressive stats I saw a couple weeks ago. It was of the amount of people I think playing on PC that were able to pass
Margit.
it was Margit
Yeah.
and then Godric, and it was a pretty respectable
high.
amount, and I was
think
very
it was like-
happy for like people jumping into this game for the first time and just going, I don't know, it got good reviews. Like
Yeah.
the numbers were pretty good. The people
Yeah.
were actually overcoming that, and that's like a really impressive first obstacle. I'm not trying to like belittle people, but like that's
No,
sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
sure,
I mean,
sure.
the concurrent numbers data is not like the be all end all of all data, but it does tell you some information. And like those numbers have stayed consistently in like the 500,000 at least or above in the first week or two. Like it actually went up the peak concurrent player from like 750,000 to 800 then 900,000. And it's like it just continues, and now still like over 500,000 people still play the game.
I'm just
So it's like it's hitting.
always
right
happy to
notes.
see it because it's like,
Me
okay,
too.
this means that like every publicly traded publisher can go, this game doesn't have microtransactions. Look at what they did with their map. Look how well it's doing, and they can just
But that's just those conversations have been happening with developers forever. Publishers. don't
I
care.
know that conversations about Cyberpunk have made it to people who matter. Like at Dev Studios, the conversations about Cyberpunk being like, this game shipped broken. Look how upset people were. We are not shipping broken. Like has actually happened. You're like, okay, well maybe every time that something comes out that's not great and it actually has a huge impact, that's technically good for everything else in theory. But I feel that way every time Resident Evil sells well. I'm like, give me more survival horror games. Come on, they keep selling.
Yeah, I hope it tells developers more spooky, creepy games.
Yeah.
Not horror games, but just games that are just weird and spooky.
Yeah.
Like there's a horror girl, there's a haunted ghoul man.
Yeah.
Go talk to them. Like just put more of those in games.
Yeah.
Yeah, more weird
Yeah,
stuff.
true.
More weird stuff. Yeah, I mean, in theory, they could just say it's the rolling. Like everybody got a roll. One thing that I still haven't been able to do very well in Elden Ring, to the extent that I'm barely even doing it, is the parrying.
Sure.
I'm just dog shit at it. Like, and I think it's because the timing is always a little bit. I have to do it a little bit earlier than I think.
Yeah.
But it's almost to the game's credit that
It's like the,
The timing is
animation has to
different
be
for
like
every enemy.
here.
yeah,
Yeah.
fucking
And he
terrible
does a
at it.
whole thing. So it's like you have to like see where the animation lands and time it based on that.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I know that I should just burn a few deaths and go and just figure it out, but I don't want to die. So I just
Yeah.
keep not practicing.
Dodging's still a
Terrible.
good option with the
Yes,
iframes.
just dodging. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Or shield.
Just
Is there anything else that we have not covered that anyone would like to say about Elden Ring?
Man,
I would just
it's
like to say fever. I think Ralph said fever dream, and that's what it felt like. You know, mainlining that game for a couple of weeks, especially how by the second half of it, it goes full buck wild. Where I was worried, I'm like, are they gonna go like really weird, like they usually do in their games? Where by the end you're fighting like a puddle of mud or whatever, and they definitely do.
Oh, yeah.
and I was
They
really
do,
happy
yeah.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're so again. I think they've always been good at that. One thing that I don't think they get enough credit for is their bosses this time. Like, not only are they always so creatively designed, and I don't mean the fights,
Oh
I
my
mean the
God.
way they look. They're
Yes,
so well
both.
animated because I went
Yeah.
straight from playing Dark Souls 3 to Elden Ring, and just the upgrade in animation is
Yes.
tremendous. Like everyone's
really
so
is.
well animated. It's so cool. Their physics are really good. Like there's a lot of stuff that like we give them credit for a million things, but there's some things that they're just so good at, considering how difficult it is to make something that has 5 heads. And then
Yeah.
they have so much enemy variety. Like that's
Yeah.
a whole person's
Unbelievable.
job for 6 years
Yeah.
is making those bosses function the way that they do. And there's 85 of them or some shit to get the platinum.
Yeah.
81.
Yeah.
Even the ones that repeat, what I love is that when you fight him again, he'll have a new move next
Yeah.
time, or so even the repeat bosses feel fresh when you fight him again.
It's incredible.
it's
Yeah.
rare that you play a game that just feels impossible. And I don't mean impossible to complete, but I mean
Impossible
impossible
to
to
exist.
make. Like
Yeah.
how did
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
how does this exist in this way? Because you could do your thesis on it. You could spend the next 5 years of your life studying this thing and how it was constructed and how it works, and you still wouldn't get it all. You know what I mean? Because it is just such a remarkable creation, I think.
Yep.
And it's very rare that you can say that of any game.
Yeah.
So,
This game, I've played close to 200 hours and it still got my attention. Like I still want to go back to it. And that, like, I don't know if I'm just getting old. That for me is very rare. Again, like at the 100 to 120 hour mark, I'm like usually done with a game. With Elden Ring, I'm excited for my next build. I'm already thinking like I got all these tools and weapons that I've collected throughout my adventure. That's just fodder for me to be able to play with for my next one, where I can just like mess around, and then you can like respec super easily in this game. So I can like work on multiple, like cycle between multiple builds, and I'm excited to just like experiment still. And no game really in recent memory has done that for me. So this is,
and again, so many people feel that way. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts.
Exactly.
I had this period early on where I was just taking screenshots of the map and then putting a little X and then sending it to people, being like, "Have you been here?" And I just kept like sending them off.
We got one of those from you, didn't we?
Yeah, I did send one to you. Yeah,
you did send
one. I was like 5 hours in, and
yes,
I was like,
Alanah, we have been there.
but a lot of people hadn't. Okay, and then they go and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like I kept doing it. It was so much fun.
That's another aspect I love about this game is it feels so communal. It feels so much like we are all together in this and like figuring it out together. Like there was an instance where like a friend of mine, we were playing it together, and my friend figured out how to get to this underground section, but he was earlier in the game than I was because I managed to play the review copy, and I didn't know about that the thing existed. So I went there, but there's a quest that I could trigger that he couldn't because I was later in the game and I had the right thing to give to the NPC to continue the quest line that he wouldn't have known about if he wouldn't have gotten that information from me, who went into that area late. So like it's like different.
We're gonna
people
be finding shit out for a long time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like we make fun of the whole like this is a Strand type game meme, but I feel like this is a Strand type game. I'm gonna put it out
every
there.
game.
With the messages and everything.
Yeah.
Like
That's right.
it's just one of the things you miss out during the review process is that the messages that are strewn about and that tell you like there's an invisible wall right there, an invisible floor, or an illusory wall or an illusory floor. And 90% of them are trolls, but the 10% that are not, like it's a revelation. You're like, holy shit, there's something back here. Thank you, messages.
Yeah.
I still got some of those messages in the review period.
Yeah,
and
I actually
people
found it pretty
in
helpful.
the review period were putting down fake wall notes on the ground, and it's like, dude, you have
who
this
do you
video
work
game
for
in advance. You are playing this on a tight deadline, and yet you set aside time in your fucking schedule to put a fake wall note on the ground. Like, don't you have
waste my time?
Come on now.
It's Jeff Grubb.
So,
It's all Jeff Grubb.
It's Jeff
I
Grubb.
found most of it pretty helpful during the review period, and then when it came out publicly, it was like tanked so fast.
Yeah.
Impossible.
The whole
to
dog,
read any of
finger,
them now.
butthole.
I love the you don't have the right, you don't have the right. Like, good God, I love it. I still love
I
it.
just love that. Every time I see it, I'm like, a praise, good.
Yeah.
You know?
Jake, I think you're going to say something, and we all just cut you off there.
Oh yes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in terms of like things other games should take from it is the map thing. How it just keeps oh boy, it gets bigger, and then it reveals itself later on to get bigger, and then 80 hours in, it reveals itself again to get bigger. It feels like the complete opposite of a normal game that you buy, and then you press pause and see the map, and you go, oh geez.
Yeah, you'd be overwhelmed.
Oh yes.
That gradual discovery is something that I would love.
Yeah.
I think it makes a hell of a difference. I would love to see more
agree.
games embrace that.
Yeah, a lot of games like they give you kind of show you the whole map. It's all fogged out. In Elden Ring, it's like the map's like zoomed in, and as you find fragments, it zooms out and out and out. So you never know how big the world actually is until you get all the map fragments, and it's enormous.
I really thought I knew. And then the whole north section.
On multiple occasions, like, okay, so this is how big this game is. Oh, no. I'm not even scratching the surface. Goddamn.
Yeah, I just feel like it's just giving players a sense of discovery constantly is like so engaging, because it really does feel like the story is happening for you. And it's something that I think more studios should lean into when given the opportunity.
Yeah, it's
Outer
like,
Wilds, very good job of that.
That's how you take advantage of the interactive nature of video games. Is like it's about both the journey you're trying to convey, but also like the player's own journey and what they take from it. That's going to be different from what other different people take from it.
Because we're not taking the story. I don't care what you say. Okay?
Yeah.
And I don't need it, though. It's fine. I'll watch a 40-minute YouTube video if I have to.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll watch 40
Vatia will take
videos.
care of us.
Yeah, it's all Vati.
It's all Vati.
That's it. It's all good.
Vati's eating well for the next 3 years. Let's just say that.
Vati, But
The only other thing I think it needs is horse armor DLC.
I was gonna say,
$6.
I really feel like the game would have been stronger if we could purchase runes at an in-game store.
Yes.
That would have really
Yeah.
made the experience a lot better. You know?
I would have
So-
liked different mounts.
that would have been cool. Yeah.
The donkey's a
not
bit
just
lame.
horse. The,
How
donkey. I think
dare
Torin's
you?
kind of badass.
That's unbelievable.
Just a
call
bit
him
lame.
I like
Torin.
Torin. I appreciate
He's
Torin.
he's such a good boy.
He's
Think
such a
about what
good
you
boy.
put him through, and he just does it uncomplainingly. And now
Keeps
you just
coming
bust
back.
out with
It's
that.
true. I laugh every
My
time
brain-
that there's a jump that's like the Empire like building tall. Like the jumps
Sure.
are so high. It's like you don't
Yeah.
because you don't know how tall it's going to be when you take it.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
good.
yeah.
My
Yeah. I
broken
would say-
brain, my broken video game brain is like so accustomed to like things always changing and things always getting better. I had convinced myself playing the game, I'm like, oh wait, he has more bags on his saddlebag. Oh, he must be getting stronger just like me. And then I realized it was just 80 hours later and I was just going insane reviewing this game.
No.
Yeah.
Never
I would say
did.
actually, I don't know, we should move on soon, but one thing I would say is that the structure, I would have liked just a tiny bit more guidance on where I should go next in certain moments. So for example, I completely skipped Caelid. Like
Oh.
I didn't know that Caelid, like I knew it was there-ish, but then I thought, oh, that's not for me. I'm going to get sent there at some point later on. So I did everything else. And I was always assuming that there was some moment where the game was going to send me to Caelid. And then eventually I was like, clearly the game is not going to send me to Caelid. I better go and check out what's over there. Then I went over to Caelid and I was just one-hitting everything. And I
Oh,
mean,
no
okay,
way.
not one-hitting, but like, for example, the boss, Radahn, right? Everyone's like, Radahn's so hard, man, blah, 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 blah. Radahn, man, he just fell over because I was so overstated at that point. And I'm so disappointed because that fight is incredible to
It's-
look at. Like,
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
Something.
And I was like, robbed of that experience. Not the right word, obviously.
Yeah, I got
But
teleported there
if-
from a chest and ended up in a cave, which I think is
I
how a lot
had
of
that
people end up
too.
there.
I had that too, but then I kind of said, okay, I'm in the wrong place. And then I kind of found my way back. But then I thought there's got to be some point where I get sent to that. And so for that reason, all of Caelid was lost to me forever. That sense of discovery
Yeah.
that I had in the rest of the game,
'Cause
I
Caelid's
never
terrifying.
got to have with Caelid.
It's
It's so scary to look at. Like
Yeah.
those fucking birds and those dogs that do the jaw
Yeah.
slam thing. And like,
T-Rex.
I was like,
yeah.
because I would fight them and I'm like, these things, imagine if I was the right level for these, how terrifying these would be.
Yeah, because
So-
I also left, but I went back because I had found quests there. So it was always in my
Right.
internal quest log of, well, I'll
Sure.
go back there when I'm a higher level. And so I
Yeah,
always
yeah.
wanted to go back there. But you're right. And I also think like the Sites of Grace, it took me a while to figure out what they were pointing me towards. And I guess sometimes it's just the nearest point of interest. But it doesn't
Pointing
really
to
shit.
the
and
next key side of Grace, basically.
yeah.
it's just to
yeah.
the next side of Grace because maybe then I
Yeah,
don't even
the-
because
the
I thought
next
some of them were like
important side
boss
of Grace.
fights because but
No,
they're in
it's
different
sometimes.
directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the end of the line would be towards a boss fight. But even then, like once you
Yeah.
kill the boss fight, you get a side of Grace from that.
Yeah.
So it's technically still guiding you to that side of Grace. So it's just kind of stringing the side of Grace.
I'm glad there are so
along.
many though.
Yeah,
for
yeah, there
sure.
are a lot, and I do like that. But
Yeah, tons of them.
for me, I accidentally skipped Raya Lucaria because that you get the hint on where the key is, but something
I
distracted
skipped
me. And I
Godric.
just, oh, really?
Yeah.
You can skip
Wow.
Godric?
Yeah, I went the wrong way around. So if you go through
Oh.
the castle, you can keep going. But I just went to the side path with all the wolves and then end up in the
Gotcha.
lakes.
Oh yeah, and with the legs.
Yeah,
right.
I
yeah.
didn't see Godric for ages.
Yeah, I
Wow.
didn't see Raya Lucaria for ages, and then I was like one-shotting everything. And
Yeah, yeah.
So like everyone has like their own journey, which is
Sure.
something that I love about this game.
Good
But yeah,
ass
it
video
can
game.
also I get that sometimes without more guidance, you can like lose out on certain things that other people might.
Yeah, and that's
experience.
less of a risk now in the age of guides or whatever, with YouTube
Right.
videos and something. But certainly playing through the review window
Yeah.
where there was no guidance whatsoever, and anyone
Ooh.
else that is playing through like completely blind, like purposely avoiding anything else, then yeah, that is I think a risk that is going to affect a few people
Yeah.
at least.
Scary.
God.
What do you mean
God.
scary?
Like it's just like, oh boy, what do I do? There's no one. If
Yeah,
I get
it-
stuck and hit a wall, who do I talk to?
Yeah.
Every other Souls game I played after their launch, this was the first FromSoft game that I played with no guidance whatsoever, and there was like an anticipation to that where it's like, oh man, what am I getting in myself? What am I getting myself into? But
Yeah.
it was incredible. I don't know. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, and obviously people still have the option to do that, which is nice. Like you
Yeah.
could still go in completely blind if you want to. Again,
True.
I recommend people play Souls games with Souls games with guides.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next release, I think, is Steam Deck,
Oh,
which I believe the two gentlemen at the bottom have. Young and I
Yes.
do not.
let's go.
Jake was
I do
playing it
have
at the start of the
this-
call.
Yeah, I do have this other like portable PC.
I've
It's
seen
one of
you with
those.
that.
Yeah, the One X
Yeah.
player. So I can like kind of talk
What
about
is it?
that. I
One
guess.
X player?
Yeah, One X player. It's this like chunky kind of Steam
That
Deck
runs
competitor,
Windows, right?
essentially. Yeah, it runs Windows. So
Yeah.
it's it's. I've
Oh,
actually-
interesting.
Yeah, I've been having a good time with it actually.
Yeah, we can talk
I
about
think
both.
Yeah, Steam Decks I think is still going to be the preferred option, but this is not a bad one either. But yeah, feel free to talk about Steam Deck and share with us your
Yeah, Jake, what are your
impressions.
you were playing it right when we started.
It's
What are your
good, and I have a
impressions?
similar because I tested the Aya Neo, which is another Windows-based type of thing, and it now it just feels like inelegant compared to this. I really like it. I have it, so I can hold it up.
It's so big.
It's a
so
big boy.
huge.
It's a big boy, but I really like how it actually feels like it's hard to explain, but it's just like plastic. It doesn't feel ultra premium. It doesn't feel like a new Samsung phone or an iPad Pro. It just feels like a
Right.
plastic device you use. And that makes a hell
I
of a
love
difference,
that.
especially because like the joysticks are good. The triggers are all right. The face buttons are okay, but the joysticks themselves are like really impressive. They feel like ripped right out of an Xbox controller, and that makes a difference. But the thing is awesome. Like I was saying before we went live, it kind of walks a line between being like consumer product, accessible, it just works, and like a busted or like in beta thing. It's like in the middle, and I think it's just enough where it's fun to tweak, just how it is with PC gaming. I mean, with PC gaming, you're going to fiddle with settings. And that's what you're definitely doing here. And not every game runs, and the battery life isn't great, and it's getting updated all the time.
Yeah,
But
how is the battery
It has
life?
issues. It's all over the place.
Depends on the game. Same as the Switch.
2 hours, 4 hours. Like I've been playing a lot of Arkham Knight on it, and that just smokes this thing. But it's still, for the power, and especially using other devices, using gaming laptops and stuff, it's still pretty wild, even if it doesn't last that long.
Yeah.
It's really something else. It has kind of helped me change up how I play games, because I like just like sitting at a kitchen table and playing my games sometimes, and I would do that with my gaming laptop, but it just sucks. So this is 10 times better.
How
And,
heavy is it? That was the thing I was worried about when they announced it, was that it looks so weighty. So like, how is it to hold for a long time?
It hasn't been so bad. It's heavier than a Switch.
Yeah.
Do
Definitely.
you think so? I mean, am I crazy?
I think it is by weight.
Objectively, it is.
It is.
but
Not
in
by
terms of-
much.
Isn't it?
Yeah, like, because you look at the size. I would say when I picked it up, I
You
was
get
actually
mine, I'll
blown
be right
away by how light it is. Because I look at the size of it and I'm like, this thing is going to weigh a metric fucking ton.
I guess that means
But
they did a really good job of making it like ergonomic. Like they balanced it really well, right? If you
Yes.
don't notice
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the back, like the dip for the grippies, like
Yeah.
where you can grab
Quite a
it,
dip.
that makes such a difference. Oh my god,
It's so comfortable to hold.
it's
Like, 'cause-
usable. Like you can
'cause the
really
Switch-
game on it.
Yeah, the Switch is just like a consistent sort of rectangular shape, like an iPhone or whatever. But
Yeah.
the Steam Deck, if you hold it up, Jake, has these depressions at the base that your palms sort of fit into. Now turn it around. Flip it on. No. As in, like, flip it around the other. No. Face it front. No, Jake, show us the front of the Steam Deck. That's the one. Okay, there we go. But do you see
Oh,
how
I see. I
yeah,
didn't know
so
that.
they make all the difference in the world, because they fit neatly into, like, that's where you hold it and they rest into your palms. And I love holding this thing for that reason. And I've always hated holding my Switch.
Where
I
do
have
your
bigger
pinkies go
hands.
when you're holding it? Because like that's the thing I had with like long gaming sessions on the Switch, is like my pinkies like broke. You hold it that way, because I hold the Switch kind of like my pinkies are out.
You don't really
The
engage.
pinkies are not supporting it.
Yeah,
Yes.
at all,
exactly. Yeah.
so-
Yup. So that's not a thing.
I
But,
googled the weight differences, and for some reason, the results were really strange. I got the weight for the Steam Deck in ounces and
Okay.
grams, and then I got the weight for the Switch in pounds. Like, I don't know why Google has done this to
I
me.
have no idea.
So Steam Deck is set to weigh 1.47 pounds, and then the
Oh.
Switch is 0.66, approximately 0.88 when Joy-Con controllers are attached, which is a pretty big difference.
Okay, that is a big difference. I guess I
Yeah.
was really then
But if
being
it's just comfortable,
surprised
right?
but I guess I was being surprised by looking at it and thinking,
There's a whole
this
room
thing
back
is
there.
This
gonna,
looks heavier.
this thing looks really heavy. But yeah, again, like you pick up an iPhone and you're just like, this thing is super dense and it's a really heavy item to pick up.
Wow, it's so big.
And you're surprised by its heaviness. But then obviously, I think when you pick up the Steam Deck, you'll be surprised by how light it
is.
feels.
I think it's
That
got to
would be
do with the
my
weight
impression.
distribution and the balance. I think
Yeah.
that just makes it
Because it
feel
also
lighter.
feels quite hollow as well. Like as in to Jake's point, it feels plasticky. That the Switch feels entirely solid all the way through as you pick it up. But this one, it's
Interesting.
much larger. Its chassis is bigger. It does feel like a hollow device. Obviously it's not, but it does feel like it has a lot more empty space inside that chassis. So, yeah.
How are you liking it, Ralph?
Okay. So it's a mixed bag in the sense that I absolutely love it. The more I play it, the more I am not convinced necessarily, because you never know how these things are going to go, but I'm very hopeful that this thing takes off, because this is just, there's no need for the Switch to exist when I have this thing. Like, obviously to play Nintendo exclusive, sure, but like I always like to play my indies on a Switch. Now I play them on a Steam Deck because I get to be in the Steam ecosystem, which is vastly better than the Nintendo ecosystem. Fuck Nintendo. I like the comfort factor of it, the screen, the tweakable performance. Like, obviously we talk about emulation as well, which is a really big deal, especially at the moment, and only getting more and more important, I think, as companies are showing their hands with regards to how they plan to manage this stuff. The Steam Deck handles emulation like a dream. But also I really like the fact that Valve it's Valve's machine, because Valve are a pretty cool company, all things considered. They're really open with regards to how they approach things, transparent. They're happy for you to have this device and do what you want with it.
Very
That's not how devices work these
Certainly
days.
not how Nintendo does it.
You can't do anything on this thing that Apple does not specifically condone. And Nintendo's the same, but even PlayStation and Xbox is similar, but they have made us a console that we can treat like an open platform PC. And that in itself is just such a revolutionary step to have a mainstream console behave like that from an ecosystem perspective is such a game changer.
And I mean, it literally is a PC,
for sure.
Which makes it so flexible.
A good example of their approach, right, is it has, you bring up on the side like the volume and brightness, and then you also have like battery tracker and battery settings, and it's levels where you can crank it up 1, 2, 3, 4, and the regular battery level is just battery life, and performance tracker. Really, you bump it up to 1. You get a little frame counter to see your frames per second. You want to get a little nastier? Are you a bigger nerd? Turn it up to 2. Then you can see frames per second, CPU performance. You want to get even wilder? Let's see how every core is doing and turn it up even more. Track temps. Like it's Valve's like interface way of showing that they are making it easy. It is a product, but they're still Valve, and they still are down to give you the freedom to tweak it, analyze it, mess with it, break it, be a nerd about it. And I like that has really made it even more exciting for me. It's giving me like the childhood thrill again of like when I used to like hack my iPod and shit like that, and like try and put Doom on everything.
It's sold out, right? Like it completely sold out. But that seems like such a niche interest that like I feel like isn't like, I wonder how it will sell versus the Switch, which, people, like most people don't care about seeing their CPU. Like majority of people who buy video games, unfortunately, are not big nerds. Like they don't care. So I wonder how appealing that stuff is. Can you play it on a plane? Airplane mode? Well,
okay. Yes, you can, firstly.
Yes.
And I would say as well, one really important point about battery life, and I think, yes, obviously you can see performance metrics, but more important than that, you can tweak the performance of the machine on the fly. So you have your in-game options, obviously, because it's a PC game, so you can do whatever you like with those. But then you also have options built into the actual Steam UI that allow you to hard cap it to 30 FPS.
So I guess the question for how that will appeal to the casuals is, like, is that UI super readable? Is it really easy to get into? They make that
literally
accessible.
A slider. It is literally a slider. It's a
or
one
you can
button
just
press,
ignore it
and then
completely.
Or you can just ignore it. But even then, I feel like that discussion about like casuals and what have you, like the PC gaming market has not ever had interest, not never, but like they naturally stay away from consoles because they're like, well, I like what I've got here and I don't mind tweaking with stuff. In fact, that kind of works for me. And I don't think we can say that the PC gaming market is niche, like it's huge and it's only getting bigger and bigger. I remember seeing a statistic about the sales of Elden Ring, and I think the highest number of unit sales was actually on PC. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Awesome.
But like that market is continuously growing. And I think this could potentially be, and even not a big shot in the arm, but another step in that journey towards mass PC adoption, because you've really got now a PC inside a console. And
it's a cool thing for people who don't have PCs. Is like definitely like I
have
hope that
PC
people,
and it's super cool for me.
Yeah,
Cheaper
no.
than a
I'm
PC.
just
Cheaper
coming
than a
in from the
gaming PC.
angle of like, for people who don't PC game, is this a thing that they will buy? Because it is still the smallest market of all of the gaming markets.
I think what makes it so appealing is the freaking price point. I can't believe they got this down
How
to
much power it has?
$400. Yeah. It's
Is
insane.
it
And the
running at a
form
loss? Like, damn.
That's a great question.
I would be surprised if they want to do loss lead on this.
No, I don't think they would. It's just so efficient that it's
they would.
shocking.
Yeah,
it really
I
is.
agree,
Wild.
I agree.
Yeah, it's sold
The
out
other thing
for
I think
a
people
long time.
don't. I think people don't underestimate. I think people don't realize. I think how many people have a Steam library. I think
man.
like I've known people out there that like just like, oh, I went to college and I used the MacBook, but like I would always redeem a game, or every once in a while get a game, or I'd win a game, or I'd buy one. So like I feel like a lot of people are sitting on Steam libraries sometimes, and they couldn't necessarily take advantage of it totally on their Mac or Apple product, and they couldn't go out and buy thousands of dollars or whatever, $1,000 gaming PC. And then this comes along and the base level one is $400?
400, yes. 400.
It's super impressive.
400 is 650 for the 512 gig.
Somebody in chat just tried to say PC gaming market is the biggest gaming market by revenue other than mobile.
Steam
that's not
has 120 million
true.
monthly active users as of 2020.
I mean, let's think about League of Legends, for example. I don't know, like when we talk about, what are we talking about? What are the comparisons we're talking about here? I don't know. I would suspect that probably is true.
It does look like it's closing. So most recent data is PC generated 35 billion, while consoles was 49 billion. So
right.
And then mobile's obviously bigger than both of them, unless we're referring to kind of different metrics. For some reason, but I think console is consistently bigger than PC still, which again, as a
like
primarily PC gamer, like
yeah,
I want to tell you
like super far behind. It's still huge. Enough that Steam Deck will have enough of a market to sell pretty well if it's handled appropriately.
I mean, I've got a Steam library of 1,000 games. I don't know about you guys, but like, and then it's like, and now 200 of those are Steam Deck verified. Like, and then a lot of those are also just playable on my Steam Deck. I buy a Steam Deck, I immediately have access
what does
to 1,000 games. Verified means that it is basically like they've gone through and confirmed that it actually works properly on the Steam Deck as intended without having to make major concessions. Like, for example, if text is too small and unreadable, that would not be verified. But if they were to make a patch, if they were to issue a patch that then offers a Steam Deck fix for text sizes, it would then become verified. It's a moving feast. They're getting verified all the time. Things are moving around. But the point is that already 1/5 of my entire Steam library is playable on that. And it's backwards compatible in perpetuity.
And nobody's making you buy the games again.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Yep. This is one of the reasons why I don't want to have to deal with Nintendo anymore. Do you know what I mean? So I just feel like all of this stuff just clicks for me so well, and I just love it so much. I'm playing fewer and fewer console things these days. I'm spending more and more time. I'm almost exclusively in the console PC ecosystem now, unless I'm playing a first-party exclusive, on PlayStation most days, because Xbox now do all their stuff on PC. And the Steam Deck is what I will use in the future as my console on the go when I don't want to be at my desk or I'm in the house doing something else. When I be on the couch, when I'm traveling somewhere, the Steam Deck is what I will use. And I just think that is so good. So having said that, I have had some problems with it.
Okay.
I've had some technical issues with it.
Can I ask how the heat is? Because a few people in chat asked that. Does it get hot?
Yeah, heat is, it does get warm, but the thermal's really smart, because imagine if this is the Steam Deck, then there it is. And then so there's actually the fan is at the top and it blows the heat right up. But more importantly, when you are holding it, the handles don't have anything going on inside them. They're essentially empty plastic except for the haptic motors. So you don't feel any of that heat. If you touch the back of it, absolutely you feel this thing is hot.
Yeah, why would you?
But when you are holding it, you never feel any heat.
Yeah.
So
They designed
You
it
look
for
at,
that.
like
it's-
the thermals
it's
from
good.
like Lion Tech Tips or whatever. Like it's blue on the handles and then
Yeah.
like red and orange in the middle.
Yeah.
Smart.
Exactly.
Really well done.
But I have had problems with my haptics. Like, in fact, a lot of problems. Like, my left trackpad doesn't have any haptics at all. My
Oh,
right.
me too.
Okay, right. I actually emailed Valve about this, and they said that some of it might be a bug. Some of it is being looked at the moment in terms of like there was an update that went out that my right stick, when I move it, it engages the haptics motor, even though it's not meant to do that. Like the left stick doesn't do that, but the right one does. Even when I'm just navigating menus, and that's clearly a bug. So there's a few things that they're working through. And so this argument about, should you buy a Steam Deck right now or should you wait for Gen 2? I mean, I don't think you're going to feel ripped off if you buy Steam Deck today, because I think it has so much to offer and it's really cool. But at the same time, you do need to accept that it is Gen 1. It's going to have some problems.
Yeah,
but then
know
obviously,
what's up with it.
Yeah, but then when you get to that Gen 2, Gen 3, then I think it's like, lock it in, man.
It's
This is a
gonna be,
fantastic fucking purchase, because
I think
it's just an awesome product.
Yeah, Gen 2 Steam Deck I think is going to be like the one. Like they're already like close to nailing it. It's just like software, a lot of software stuff they have to fix, which they'll do over time. Hardware wise, I feel like for a Gen 1 product, man, like they've really like nailed the components, the performance, the right balance of price to power. Like it,
everyone seems really enthusiastic about it. So again, it's that balance of like recognizing that it has some issues, but being forgiving of them because the positives outweigh the negatives by so much, I guess.
It also has the benefit of, like, to go back to Elden Ring, it's almost like playing Elden Ring 6 months later and seeing a whole community built out already, or a Souls game where people have been playing Souls games and builds for years. So for this, it's like the Steam community and the Linux community that have been like putting in work for years with controller layouts, compatibility stuff, back-end hacks and stuff, like to be able to get Epic Game Store on here like that. It's all Linux users and all those people being like, come on in, we've been working,
and
now you can enjoy your stuff, we'll help you.
You can also mod your games because it's a PC.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Without a like required marketplace, that is awesome.
Exactly.
Yes.
Love that.
Fantastic. So yeah.
Yeah, anything else that we should know about it?
Good luck getting one, lol. It's just not going to be available for like what, 18 months, I reckon. If you were to pre-order one now, which I don't even know if you can pre-order them. I don't imagine you're going to get it inside the next.
Is it still
12
Q3?
months. You can pre-order right now. Is it Q3?
Yeah,
Okay,
so.
right.
It's not that bad.
They do say they are ramping up production, which is great. I know obviously it's not even out in all markets. Like mine was sent to me as a review unit, but it's not out in Australia, New Zealand, a whole bunch of territories. So hopefully they speed that up as well, because
I'm so curious to see how it sells. Like I'm just like, is this a thing that I could get my sister, who doesn't game on PC right now, to like play PC games with me? Like maybe. Like I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm very curious to see how it goes.
Yeah.
Also, just for people in the chat or people watching, they give you like a really good case with this thing. It's like shockingly good.
They
Yeah,
do. It's so strong. It's like bulletproof.
I'm so used to being like abused as a consumer, like they gave me something that was like in it, and I'm like, oh my god, you guys really love me. It's like, it's really nice. It's like a legit case. Like it's like one I had to go out of my way and go to 3 Targets to buy a case for my Switch. When that came out, this thing is nice.
Wow, when you knocked on that was a solid sound.
10 out of 10 knock.
Boy.
And show the inside as well, because it's got like that molded foam.
Yeah, the padding is all like exactly molded to
Yeah.
Man,
that's We're getting a live unboxing from Jake Baldino. If you could see more of that case, that would be nice.
Mine's not quite this is a Steam Deck at home.
Oh yeah,
but I just got a Switch OLED.
This is still like very usable. I've got great triggers.
That thing is a beast.
It's huge. It's an 8-inch screen.
So
what is it exactly?
Clean it up a little bit. It's just a PC.
Okay.
In this form factor. It's straight up what essentially Steam Deck, except it comes built in with Windows, so everything's compatible from the outset. The drivers and everything were made for it to run on Windows, and so there are certain things in Steam Deck that I think are still incompatible because some things just run better on Windows or just only run on Windows for now, I guess. But with this, it's like it's all kind of already. It's just Windows. It's all it is. Now it doesn't have.
Who is it made by?
This was it started out as a Kickstarter actually.
Oh, cool.
All right.
And then and then enough people bought, I guess, their first iteration for them to keep making new models. This is not, there's a mini version that I'd recommend, I think, to more people because this one's, I think, a little too big.
It's huge.
And the mini one has better grips, but this has a bit of a grip back here, like the contours there where your finger can grasp on it. So it's still like fairly solid. It's still fairly comfortable, especially if you're holding it more like this. Here, it's like it gets a little heavy and it feels like you have to like put pressure sort of inwards so it stays. But the buttons feel comfortable. The analog sticks are nice, and it's just a big ass portable Windows PC.
How much is it?
Touchscreen. There's the rub. That's the reason Steam Deck will dominate the market. This is $1,300.
Holy shit!
Whoa.
It performs about as well as Steam. It has a better CPU than Steam Deck, but Steam Deck is based on RDNA 2 GPU, whereas this is Vega, and I believe RDNA 2 is just better. So I think Steam Deck overall is like about the same or a little better in terms of just running games. Now, this has the benefit of a high resolution screen, though I think they put too much screen on here with a 2600 by 1600 resolution. But what it does enable is, like, say you're playing Hades, which is not super graphically demanding. You can go beyond 1270 by 800, I think is the Steam Deck, and it just looks a lot sharper. At that when you go to 16 by 9 or whatever, 1600 by 900. And so for weaker games, you can boost up the resolution and still play at 60 frames per second comfortably, and it just looks really good on an 8-inch screen that's like right here.
It's so big. It's so weird to
look at. It is enormous. I would not.
It's cool though. It's cool how many people are getting into that market.
Yeah, that one's way better than this one. This is the
that looks like a Game Boy.
Aya Neo.
Yeah,
this is like the same thing as yours.
Right? Yeah.
And I think this is like close to $1,000. This actually broke too. They sent it to me for review, and it broke. And then I emailed them, and then they ghosted me.
Oh wow!
Oh, no.
Well, that sucks.
But it's AMD based. It's a beast. It screams. It's super loud. It runs Windows.
Yeah, this one, the fans aren't too loud. The speakers are nowhere near as good as Steam Deck. I can tell you that right now. There's a turbo button here you can hit, and then it basically makes the hardware go on overdrive at the expense of battery, but it means better performance. So, and it feels pretty premium to hold and to use, and it's got a micro SD card slot here, USB ports, and everything.
And you can
even attach a keyboard down here.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, there's an accessory.
Cool.
I think that's a bit overkill.
Does it have like a kickstand type thing?
It does. It has
a
kickstand right here.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and you can place it down right here, play with a controller. You know,
but I guess you could just buy one and then you'd be fine.
Yeah,
you can play the Steam Deck with a controller.
Yeah, Bluetooth sync up. So.
I've been docking it too. I've been docking it to a monitor and messing around with it like that.
Yeah, you can do that with this as well. But the price is just like I can't justify the price. Is the main thing.
That's a lot.
The Steam Deck just blows it out of the water.
$400. I don't know how.
That'd be like $6,000 in Australia.
It's true.
Yeah.
But, plus import tax.
That's right.
I love that competition exists and that it's being encouraged, because it just means everyone's going to try to like top each other, and we're just going to get better devices from here on out.
It's an exciting landscape right
now, for
sure.
It really is.
Before we wrap up, the other two things that have come out are Kirby. Has anyone played it?
Oh, not yet, but
I'm playing it tomorrow, so I've also not played it yet, but I'm very excited about it. I think it looks awesome.
Me too. I've heard nothing but good things.
We missed the Destiny expansion. Thank you very much.
Anyway, the other one was Tiny Tina's. You can talk about Destiny if you want.
I'll allow it. No, that's fine. There's really not much to talk about other than
people seem to like it. You're right.
People do like it. People do like it. It's actually, and I think it's kind of broken through as well with like the review scene, and like it's getting critically it's really like doing well. I think it's actually one of the highest rated releases of the year, like of anything, like DLC or otherwise. So critics really love it, players really love it. There's obviously lots of issues with Destiny at all times, because it's that kind of game
the player base is happy.
The player base are very happy.
I stopped 2 years ago and did not get back in. But the raid did look really cool.
It's always very cool. It's always.
I mean, that's
be sure to check out Ralph's on the SkillUp channel his 1 hour manifesto video.
As long as you have an hour free, I do not recommend anyone watch my review unless you are a Destiny fan with like way too little in your schedule. Okay, other than that,
you were making it
everyone has better things to do than watch a 1 hour Destiny review. I will just say that. Okay, that's what I would say.
Honestly,
I watched a 4 hour video about Deus Ex.
Oh, even if you're not a Destiny fan, it's a good video. I'd recommend anyone watch it.
Yeah,
just because it's a fun, good video with lots of cool info on it, and it succinctly, I think, presents what this patch is and
Sure.
how many great things like this game gets right, and then the areas that you said are broken, like you just feeling way too overpowered.
Sure.
Which I totally get. Like I thought
I
it
didn't
was
watch
really
this
well done.
hour-long video because I'm not a fucking nerd. Yeah.
You're
Well,
a
I'm a
different
nerd.
type of
Proud.
nerd. We're all nerds. Let's be inclusive here, okay? It's just about where we choose to focus that nerd energy, okay? So,
Okay, I will leave a link in
Indeed.
the description because we've obviously glossed over this thing that apparently you have an hour worth of conversation in you about.
do not inflict that on your audience, okay? Please, Alanah. All right, just spare them, please.
Has anything Final Fantasy come out since the last
Stranger
time
of
we chatted?
Paradise, Final Fantasy.
Oh, I didn't play that
Origins.
yet.
I played a portion of it.
Okay.
It's man. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What an
The
absolute boss.
combat has a lot of potential, but it's marred by everything else around it. The level design, I don't think, is very good. The story, I don't think. I haven't finished it, so I can't say for sure. But generally, I'm hearing by the time you get to the end, it feels like an unnecessary story, and that it's not really anything super compelling. It's basically the Neo combat that carries it, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Visually, graphically, it looks like a PS3 game outright. And I've had multiple people sort of echo that sentiment in my circle of friends. And it's not a bad game. Like, I think some people are going to have fun with it because the combat's really, like it's flashy, but it's got just the right amount of souls, but it's a little more combo based, but it's also got the job switching system. And there are really cool aspects to that I commend it for. But when I don't think that alone can carry a game, and I feel like that's all this game really has going for it.
It's just combat.
Good combat, I think, is about the only praise I can give it based on what I've played. Story's not quite there. Level design is just, piss poor. Like really.
Oh, that's a
bad.
shame. Level design makes or breaks the game for me.
Yeah, it's really like just a bunch of hallways. Sometimes it's kind of interconnected in such a way where you can get lost because it all kind of looks the same. There's no mini map, and this game really does need one, in my opinion. It's not super well written either. I don't think. Like the dialogue is very weirdly done. The performances try with what they have, and you can bring Daniel Day-Lewis into this, and I don't think he could make this work.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, can we get Daniel Day-Lewis in the next Final Fantasy? That sounds
that'd
great.
Be great. Yeah, but for this script, I don't think, and no matter how good an actor you are, I don't think you can really make it work.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. So it's I had a.
If you're
I have
looking
a very
for a good
mixed,
combat experience, maybe that's it.
Yes, if you like Neo 2 and are looking for more of that kind of combat experience, I'd recommend this game, and I think you're gonna have fun because the combat itself, I think, is fun. But
I'm not surprised that the writing wasn't good based on the trailer.
The trailer, yeah.
I don't know, man. Those cutscenes, they look incredible. I'm not really sure.
Did look like
where
a
you guys are coming
ride.
From.
Yeah,
They look.
I will
so
say this:
good.
like the way events play out, like it's one of those like. I guess it's so bad it's good kind of thing. It is entertaining to watch the bizarreness of how this game is presented. And so there's an entertainment. It's not a forgettable game, which is better than
nothing. Yeah.
But it's I wouldn't recommend it to everyone.
That's fair.
It's a mixed bag.
The only other thing I was going to ask about before I let you guys go, this has been way longer than I anticipated, is Tiny Tina's, which I've also not played. If anyone wanted to give a synopsis on that, if you've checked it out.
Yes.
Kind of burned out on Borderlands, so I've not played it yet.
I'm not big into Borderlands either, but I was really interested in the look of this. It looks like a thing that I think I'll really enjoy. I just haven't tried it yet.
The magic and fantasy elements, it's kind of neat.
It's as someone that liked Borderlands, but definitely didn't have much affection for it, and that found the writing completely insufferable. And was broadly pretty burnt out on the Borderlands formula. I actually quite like this one. I think this has done a good job. I think it's revitalized enough components of the formula that it carries it over the line. For example, the writing it's the same as it was before, but the context matters because when it's a Dungeons and Dragons game, you forgive all of the ridiculous, cringy, sort of improv-esque level writing because you're like, well, that's what happens in a D&D campaign. People just riffing and, some funny stuff gets said, some cringy stuff gets said, but you keep on rolling, Obviously, Ashley Birch's Tiny Tina is doing a huge amount of heavy lifting throughout all of that. But also, her imagination is manifest in the game world. So she'll be like walking along, and then she'll be like, and then all of a sudden, some pirates arrive, and then you look to your left, and boom, some pirate ships are there, and then some skeleton army arrives, and you turn to your right, and boom, there's
That's
and
cool.
like the fact that she can reshape the world just by imagining it in front of you. I don't think any game has really done the D&D thing like that, and it kind of makes you feel like there should be something.
They usually
that
take
exists
themselves
like
too
that.
seriously. A lot of the
Exactly,
D&D
they're
games
like
are-
you Neverwinter Nights and
I
whatever
love
else,
Neverwinter,
and
but
yeah, of course,
yes.
but like it's a very different thing. Versus this just feels like, well, how do we just immediately splash imagination onto the screen?
Yeah, you're right that the
Um,
tone suits the style of game a lot more than some of the other
Definitely.
Borderlands writing
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
does. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out this week. I'm excited about it. Like it, and I also just like Borderlands Diablo sounds fun. Like that's what it
fresh.
looks like. I don't know if it plays like.
Fresh.
Oh,
It
I
freshens
see.
it up.
I see. Yeah.
And I love
Yeah.
tabletop. I play Dungeons and Dragons quite a bit, so to just get all those like references and the way like those tropes you associate D&D with, and the jokes and the inside jokes, I think that'll be fun. I might check this one out.
Just it being structured a little bit differently, and like the building out your character a little bit differently made a hell of a difference for me. I was like totally into it, especially because I feel exactly the same way as Ralph, where I was like, okay, Borderlands, all right, this is cool. This is very cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
I liked it.
Well, thank you for joining me for like 2 hours almost. Not quite.
Yeah.
We're not far off. I apologize. Young, what are you working on right now? Where can people find you?
Find me on youtube.com/YongYea. I'm actually going to be reviewing this honky piece of hardware and news. I'll cover them as they come along. And YongYea VO if anyone's interested in voiceover related stuff. And if you just want to hang out and just like reach out, twitter.com/YongYea or @YongYea. But yeah, just the same old, working on content, whatever comes next. Yeah.
Cool. Jake, how about you?
My YouTube channel is my name, Jake Baldino with a B. Just kind of doing whatever right now. I think there's going to be some more big news this week, so I'm probably going to be talking about that. And then on Game Ranks, we're currently working on, I'm going to cover my hands in Cheeto dust, and then I'm going to use this and see what happens.
No.
Not a good idea. Very disrespectful to the device and all the people out there that can't get their hands on it. But
Oh my.
it's what we do. It's how we test things. It's a scientific process, and it makes a good thumbnail.
It will make a very good thumbnail.
You're gonna make Reddit so mad. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. That's true.
Ralph, how about you?
I am SkillUp. I am on the YouTubes. I'm on the Twitters too much. You can Google me, and I'm doing Weird West at the moment. Is anyone else reviewing Weird West?
No, what is
No,
that?
No.
I've seen
Weird
mention
West
of
know
it.
about
is so it's the new studio from Rafael Colantonio, the former director of Dishonored and Prey. It's with a bunch of arcane vets. It's an immersive sim set in a very weird rendition of the Wild West. And I'm reviewing that at the moment. So I'm under embargo. Can't say anything else. Review's out later this week.
Noted.
And then there is like a 4-month dry spell where nothing is coming out, can I say? Like, there are no games coming. So after that, I don't know what I'm doing, man. Actually, there's Lego Star Wars, I think, next week.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Oh.
it's
Nah,
just chill.
vacation.
It's
Is it a
chill
dry spell?
time. So
Gotcha.
I'm just gonna like recharge for a bit. I think ahead of like end of year release schedule, which was going to be bigger until Breath of the Wild got bumped. Now it's just
Surprising
Ragnarok.
nobody.
Surprising
Oh,
nobody, yeah. Now it's just
You
like
called it.
Ragnarok is the last big thing to look forward to this year. Like big thing, I mean, really big.
Yeah.
It's like
There are
that's it. I
probably
think.
some things that haven't been announced that we'll find out about.
Actually, Starfield. I forgot Starfield.
yeah,
Starfield.
Starfield's a
Starfield.
pretty
No,
big
yeah.
thing.
There's
Again,
some-
is that
that's
coming
a
out this year too? I don't know.
I'd be surprised if they
Honestly, with this one,
bumped
I
it.
think it is coming out this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I'm a
Yeah.
little more sure
I
about.
feel like we just haven't seen very much of it. They just keep talking about it.
Yeah.
Having
But I
coffee
Personally, that's a
together.
good sign.
Yeah.
I prefer they show it when, closer to launch, when it's like more representative of the final
true.
product.
It's true. I'm like don't love the marketing cycle of being shown things 3 years in advance.
Yeah, I
over and over
agree.
and over again. So I kind of I love the way that Bethesda did their first E3 conferences where it was like, and here's this thing
Yeah.
that's out now, or like in 3 months. Like I really like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's good.
maybe that's what they're trying to
yeah.
stick to.
It'll be interesting to see. Like, it feels like Elden Ring right now is sort of the sure one to win Game of the Year, but God of War Ragnarok that's the one that could potentially, now that
Appreciate
Breath
that.
of the Wild
Thank you.
2 has been
Means
pushed
a lot.
back.
It's gonna be a big hill to climb, man. Just gonna say it's gonna be a
very
tough
true.
hill to climb.
But what God of War has is it has that emotional kind of heart to it that Elden Ring is more.
The review is a suck as for.
Of the
It's the truth.
discovery. But Ragnarok has that story, that father-son, like that, like contributes, I think, a lot to the game. It's in large part why God of War had such an impact on me, is that father-son story and aspects of it that were relatable on top of the incredible gameplay. And I mean, I imagine the set pieces are going to be on another level with this one. I mean, God of War 1 already, like, yeah, I know you can't talk about it, but it seems like this game's really going for it. And I think maybe it has a chance to win Game of the Year, but Elden Ring's, I don't know, I'm feeling Elden Ring's going to really secure it. It's going to be really hard to beat that one out.
We appreciate your enthusiasm.
Yes, please don't recast
well
me.
handled,
No,
Alanah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know much about the game if anyone's going to ask, because voice actors don't get told anything.
No, you
They're
just get like your own script, and that's kind of
exactly. And
same.
I wouldn't talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know much about it.
Under NDA, so yeah.
No, I feel like we're gonna get some more releases before the end of the year, surely, that we just don't know about yet. But yeah, it does feel like it was like weirdly front loaded, which is like why I wanted to chat to you guys right now. And obviously, we had a lot to talk about. So
yeah.
Thank you all
Thanks
for joining
having
us. I'm sure we'll do this again.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys
Thank
next
you.
time.
See you. Bye.
YongYea.
Whispered it.
That little
Do it with confidence.
YongYea. That's right. YongYea.